the underdogs. I'm an underdog. I've been through it all. I can never.
What's good, you guys? Welcome back to For the Underdogs podcast. I hope that everyone is doing well. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Miss Jen Graffice, who is a mental performance coach. And I say it all the time, super excited to speak to her because last week we had the clinical social workers, Miss Danielle and Miss Kathy, on here, and they kind of tied in the mental health piece of what athletes and people go through. And I'm excited to talk to Jen because she is I'm sure you do it all, but she does the performance side as well. So super excited to talk to her, and I want to welcome Miss Jen.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. How are you?
I'm amazing.
Good. So I want to talk about, first off, just how you got started in this space of being a mental mindset coach. Like, what sparked you to be in that, category of a person, and how did you get there?
Well, my degree is in sports medicine. So
Nice.
I was an athletic trainer for a high school for my first couple of years out of college. And I really enjoyed working with the athletes. I really enjoyed getting to know them, injury prevention. I actually, in the state of Ohio, also worked at the medical college.
Okay.
So I actually got to watch. I worked in the orthopedic clinic in the morning, and then I went out to the high school in the evening.
Nice.
And so I actually got to watch from surgery all the way through to back on field and back to play. So that full cycle of what that does physically and mentally and emotionally is quite a feat. And then when I moved to Arizona, unfortunately with managed healthcare, they wanted me to be a trainer for like 5 high schools and go to a different high school every single day.
Yeah.
And to me, that just wasn't quality care. How can you keep up with hundreds of athletes in one day a week?
For sure.
And so I entered the personal training industry, and I was in the health, wellness, and fitness industry for a good 15, 20 years, running athletic clubs and spas. I was a fitness pro and a fitness director and ran athletic clubs and spas. And then as my kids grew up and started getting into sports, I started seeing the dynamics of them and them with coaches. And my son was on the Mesa Soldiers, which was this really hardcore, very competitive football, very much ran military style.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. No, sir.
Really?
Yes, sir. No, ma'am. It was all the beautiful discipline from my perspective in regards to, teaching people to look in the eyes, stepping on the scale, saying thank you, all the things. And then my daughter was a competitive cheerleader, and I saw the coaching aspect from that end as well. And I saw how some kids responded really well to both disciplines and some did not. And then just as they continued to age and grow older, I was like, I kind of miss being in that space.
Yeah,
and
being involved.
Yeah, and I'm a big personal development junkie, so I really started focusing in personal training. You do a lot of habit, behavioral changes as well.
Yeah.
So mindset is a part of that, is what I was doing. But I really started diving into the brain and how to better and how to help them and how to help the coaches. And it started with volunteering with my kids' sports.
Yeah.
Hey, can I talk to your team? Hey, do you want to be the team trainer and team motivational coach, whatever? And then I started getting some certifications and became practitioner of,
Love that. Yeah.
And here I am. Q Life was born now 11 years ago.
Yeah. Congratulations on that.
doing
11
this
years.
for 11 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. What intrigues you about the brain and the mind? Like, to me, the brain is so interesting because I've experienced all of these things throughout my playing career.
Right.
And it's almost like you have to play that game with your mind at some point. And to be able to control certain emotions or certain feelings that you're having, what intrigues you about the mind and the brain and how it affects athletes in their day-to-day and just normal people?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's such a loaded question.
Yeah.
There's so many things. I think even for me, as I was doing my own personal development and I was on my own personal journey from getting divorced to starting my own business to having to start all over, that's a lot,
Yeah.
I was taking care of all my kids and all the things. And I just wanted to continue to elevate myself and just push the limits of what I could do and how I wanted to do it. And
what was that? Sorry to cut you off, but being in that moment, what was that like? What decision did you have to make to know that you wanted to better yourself post going through those things?
Actually, I got kind of wrongfully terminated from my corporate job. And I fought it actually, and I won because it was 100% wrongful.
Yeah.
And they knew they would have a lawsuit on their hands. So in that time, It was a situation where in that time I knew they were just reorging
Gotcha.
to get rid of me. They wanted a lower salaried kind of person kind of thing. And and at that moment I literally was like, what's Jen going to do next? And it's not going to be to work for somebody else.
Yeah,
I'm going to never let anyone tell me my worth
Dictate.
again.
Yeah.
And so when they walked me out the last time, that, the legit time, I was ready for it. I already had my website up. I was already starting to do stuff on the side, and I was like, peace out.
That's powerful.
Here I go.
Yeah, that's powerful. A lot of people don't get to that mode. They kind of sulk in what they've just gone through, and it's the woe is me mindset. Yeah. So that's powerful.
And even scarier, I had just gotten divorced, so I had zero income and was taking care of both my kids by myself. Wow. So it was tough, but I cashed in my 401k and did what I had to do, and let's go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, tell me about what intrigues you about the brain and the mind.
I think the big one that most people actually don't really recognize, and I love to teach about. So I'm a master practitioner in NLP. I don't know if you're familiar with NLP, but it's neuro-linguistic programming, and it's all about you become what you speak about. And our thoughts actually can turn into things.
Tell me more, because I'm all about it.
Yes. So thoughts become things, right? So we become what we speak about, we become what we think about, and through the power of our words, we're actually placing those thoughts in that directive to our subconscious. And so the way that we talk to ourselves is basically the way that we're creating our own reality, which is such a beautiful thing. So like, for example, when I'm working with coaches or I'm doing a coaches clinic, coaches are so... and rightfully so, they're looking for all the things that people aren't doing well, right? Hey, bend your knees. Hey, don't throw the ball that way. Hey, don't bust that tumbling. Hey, don't fall. Don't miss that tackle. And the classic one, of course, is, hey, don't throw that interception, right, with the quarterback. And then what happens? 9 times out of 10, he throws the interception. And what I teach the team and the coaches is that actually isn't on the quarterback. That's actually on you for putting it in his subconscious. He was ready to go. He was ready to make that final winning throw, and somebody said that to him, and it went straight to his subconscious, and then the subconscious took over, and then he got out of his flow state and then caused him to throw the interception. Now, I also, on the other side, also teach the quarterbacks how not to let those thoughts in.
Okay, so what is that process like?
So that process is more about, if you picture, this is just a visual that I give, if you picture your skull as the protector, as the barrier. And so if I say, hey, I think your podcast is awful and you're never going to make it, you have the opportunity to decide, am I going to let that through? And if you don't let that through, it doesn't affect you. And so just it's filtering those influencing thoughts. If that's a thought that doesn't serve you, hey, I didn't connect with that thought. That doesn't serve me. I'm doing good in this space. I love what I do. I don't really care. I'm not going to let that serve me. So, and then when I say, oh my gosh, did you know what number podcast is this today? It's actually it's actually number 21.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, minus the one that you just did, right? Yeah. So I actually brought you this because this is pretty powerful, and I know you're a big grinder.
Yeah.
So go ahead and open this.
All right, let's see what you got.
So 90% of podcasters quit after number 3.
Wow.
When you hit number 21, which I thought today was me, and now I'm 22.
22, yeah, yep. It's good.
When you hit 21, you're in the top 1% of podcasters.
Let's go. I love to be, in that space right there.
How cool is that?
That's really cool.
And so that's just your reminder that it only, 21, 1%, you're in the top 1% of podcasters.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many people, if you have millions or you have hundreds, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because you have done the work and you continue to do it, and eventually it's all going to catch up.
Yeah, that's special because...
And don't you want to keep that in your brain?
Absolutely.
As opposed to the first thing I said?
Absolutely. Yeah. Right. And I think the big piece is like, whenever you're starting out something new, me being an ex-NFL player, I had the fears of starting and not finishing. And I've gone through the emotions of like, I don't feel like doing a podcast, or, I don't know if my podcast is as good as I think it is. And then I always go back to like, no, it is. Like,
it is.
I'm in that space for a reason, and I truly believe that this platform is different than a lot of other platforms, and it's special because of the conversations that I have with people there's so much substance in it. So I appreciate you for doing this, because it actually does mean a lot, because I've gone through all of those emotions in the process of doing this.
And even regardless if you choose to do another story, you still made it into the top 1%, right? Of what they do. And I agree with you. It's all about doing what you love and loving what you do. And so many times I look at my Instagram and I'm like, oh my gosh, I only have 3,000 followers. You know, I could pay to make it look better, but I don't care, because I'm just like, you know what? I am loving it. I am making money. I am doing all the things that I want to.
Absolutely.
And it's all about the connections and the relationships. It's not about the views.
Absolutely. And I actually came across something maybe a couple weeks ago where, you know, you spoke about having 3,000 followers, and maybe that doesn't feel like a lot, or whatever the case may be. And, you know, there's people that get 30 likes on a post and they're beating themselves up because they didn't get more than 30 likes. But it's like, if you were out in person and 30 people came up to you and said, I like what you're wearing today, you would feel great about yourself. But just because we're on social media and there's people getting hundreds of thousands of likes, we subconsciously put it in our mind that 30 people liking our picture isn't enough.
Right.
So, you know, that changed my mindset with this. I don't know how many followers we have on the podcast show, but like, the fact that people message me every time I release one and say, this really helped me out, this really did a lot for me. Absolutely. At the end of the day, that's all that matters to me with this platform. So I've changed my mindset around.
And that's exactly like you said. That's how you got to me, by seeing something that I've done. I just did a Are You Strong podcast by somebody in Indiana who saw one of my TikToks, and I don't post much on TikTok.
Yeah.
And like that's enough. Yeah. And for me, it's my place to store my story. Mm-hmm. Like that's all I care about. Mm-hmm. It's my story, it's my content, but my content is basically what I live. Yeah. And I get the fortunality of doing what I love and loving what I do every day and connecting with people and impacting, and I just want to keep doing more of it, you know.
I love that, and you will for sure. Talk to me about athletes and why you think that it's been more prevalent now that we're speaking about athletes and the mental, you know, performance things that they go through. Why do you think that has been something that's been spoken about so much now?
I mean, I think there's quite a few things. Number one, I don't think it was talked about when we were athletes back in the day as much. It was definitely more of a harder driven style coaching for the most part. I believe that the way society is today, I do an entire lecture on what social media does to these kids' brains, and it's really scary. And but it's real. And their brains are so their brain just so the issue a lot of times also is with the parents. I know we kind of talked about that earlier. Yeah. Like parents can't relate to why their kids can't do what they need to do, or they can't stay disciplined, they can't stay motivated, they procrastinate all the time, they don't seem like they have energy. I hear all the time from coaches and from parents, oh, my kid's lazy, they're weak, they can't take criticism, they have no self-confidence, like what's the deal? Like back in the day, coach could scream and yell at me and I would just get up and do it again. Right. And now we have kids throwing up and kids having full-on panic attacks when things like that happen. So why is that? And I have to remind the parents that, number one, that their child is anywhere from 12 to 20. Yeah. And their brains are not developed the way that ours were. And even more significant, because of social media and because of the constant scrolling, it has created that instant gratification in their brains, which has changed the way that their brains function. So now they can no longer take those criticisms as easily because they're seeing all this great stuff on social media, and they think that, like you said, like we talked earlier about the followers, they think there's something wrong with them. Yeah. And then they make that story up in their head, right? Back to the we become what we think about, we become what we speak about. So if we're, told something or we think we're not good enough, then it just kind of spirals from there, which then creates those mental health issues of performance anxiety and panic attacks and the inability to perform under pressure anymore, whether it's a golfer that gets the yips or whether it's a quarterback or a kicker or a cheerleader who suddenly just can't tumble at all. Yeah. It's a big thing. And when you can understand that, and when the parents understand that, they kind of have that aha moment of, now I'm comparing apples to oranges. And that's why I'm not able to communicate with my child right now.
Yeah.
That's why it's not resonating. That's why I don't understand what they're going through, because I literally don't, because we didn't go through it.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it's a very hard, and coaches are struggling with it as well, because they now have to change their coaching styles.
Yeah.
And
which is tough for a lot of coaches to do.
Yep. We've had a lot of coaches in the big leagues quit because of it.
Yeah.
It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I think also coaches feel like, well, there's the whole power of positivity, and now I can only speak positively, and how can we be hardcore and only be positive?
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a really nice blend of being able to communicate, and you have to set the expectations, and you have to hold the kids to the expectations and to the consequences of whatever it is that the team is trying to accomplish. And you have to hold true to those boundaries to make them elevate up. And when you have the athletes own those boundaries as well, it can be really powerful.
Yeah, I think we're in a unique time just in sports as a whole, because it has changed so much. Like you said, there's still that crowd coaching that is like, this is how I know to coach. Like I'm a yeller, I'm a screamer, but now we're coming up with kids that aren't responding well to that, or even professionals, like in the sport of the NFL, like I've seen guys not be able to handle a coach yelling and screaming that you normally would think that it would be okay, So I think we are in a unique time. You had spoke about, people not being able to perform at their highest, given, them going through whatever. And that reminded me of like fear of failure that you have obviously done some research on. And I want to talk about that, because I've experienced that as well within my career, of just having the thought right before the play happens that I'm going to lose this rep, or I'm going to not be as successful as I thought, but then somehow I snap out of it. Not all the time, but there's times where you have to battle that before the snap of the ball. And I just want to get your opinion on it around the whole fear of failure thing.
Yeah. Fear of failure is, it's a hot topic that I used to talk about a while ago, maybe 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the acronym, I think that is the best that go, and maybe you've heard of it, fear of failure. So fear, FEAR, is you either fear everything and run, which
or face everything
and rise. And that fear of failure, again, is that us taking the power of our brain and utilizing it. And a lot of the techniques that I use have to deal with being intentional with our words.
Okay.
So I have a whole like pre-competition, pre-game day that I do with individual athletes as well as with teams, to actually anchor them all in the same energy, all in the same intentions. So if you're being intentional and you are going out into the field, and if I were your mindset coach, I would say to you, Jamil, give me 3 intentions that you need to do today to have your best game ever. Just 3 words.
Yeah.
And they need to be action items. So go.
They need
3
to be
words, action items that you're going to do on the field that's going to exponentially get you to play your best game.
Okay. So for me, being an offensive lineman, I would say I'm going to communicate.
Yep.
I'm going to finish after the whistle.
Yep.
And I'm going to get in a great stance.
Okay.
Because that
I love
starts
that.
everything.
So that's a technique thing, right? So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's going to be communicate, finish, and stance.
Stance, yeah.
Okay. Communicate, finish, and stance. Now, that in itself will calm your brain, because now you're focusing on the 3 technical things that you need to do when you're out there.
External focuses.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but it's intentional. So the second you get down there, you're going to be like stance. You don't have time to think about everything that's going on. So it's a way to help eliminate distractions, and it's super, super powerful. It's super powerful even for athletes and gymnasts and cheerleaders who have like mental blocks. Like if you start to have those thoughts, then start saying the technical terms that you need to do. So now we're just telling our brain how to fuel our body, and then our body easily follows along. And it makes a huge difference. I've had kids come out of mental blocks just by using that technique, or players or catchers or pitchers or quarterbacks be like, holy crap, that really worked. Because you're just focused in the moment And of course, a lot of time with our brain, right? We want to go to the future
For sure.
as opposed to staying in the present.
Yeah.
And when we can keep our mind focused on that present moment and eliminate a lot of those distractions, it also helps us stay in our flow state.
That's big. Yeah, I like to think back on the best games or performances that I've had in my career. I was just lost within the game.
Yep.
Like I was in the moment. I was doing play by play, just playing what was happening out, and I wasn't worried about at the end of the game what I'm doing or the end result, what grade I'm going to get on this game. It was just like a play by play thing. I'm just in that moment. So I think the more that people can, like you said, be in that moment, be in that flow state, it serves you well moving forward in your performances.
Absolutely. So the way I also describe it is fear exists only in the past. So we had to have some sort of experience that's created that fear that lies within us.
Okay.
I had a bad game. Oh my gosh, what if I have another bad game?
Yeah.
Right? So fear exists in the past and anxiety and worry exists in the future. So how do we eliminate both of those things?
Being in the middle.
We need to be in the present moment. And so anything that we can do that can draw us back to the present moment helps us elevate ourselves, be in that flow state, stay in that flow state, and just execute the way that we know how to execute.
Yeah. What would you describe as the flow state? Like, what does the flow state feel like? What is it?
Oh,
Because
you know,
I've
been there
but,
too.
But I want you to.
It's magical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
When you are, being in the flow state is literally when you are, everyone thinks that, right, when you, like our brain is going a million miles a minute and like when things happen really, really fast. So a lot of times I'll ask athletes, for you in the flow state, do things seem to slow down or do you just forget everything? And a lot of times it's a combo of both.
Yeah, both.
Right?
Yeah.
My quarterbacks can say I can literally see, the string spinning on the ball. Like everything is just in slow motion. It's actually not in slow motion. You're actually fully present. Right? Because when we're not, then all those other thoughts make it seem like it's so much faster. But when we're in that flow state, in that present moment, when I'm keynote speaking and I'm on stage, and next thing I know, like I'm just looking at people smiling and then it's over and I'm like, dang, that was so flipping good.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what I just said.
Yeah.
For me, everything flows through God. So like I'm just a vessel and I love it when I'm in that flow state and I'm just able to deliver a message exactly the way that my heart intended. And it just gets to be delivered in a way that when I'm done, I'm like, what just happened? Right? Just like you said, you're like, wow, that was great.
Yeah.
And I was just in that, like in the moment, enjoying
That's real.
it.
Yeah, that's real because I used to be in this space, even with the podcast, like, where I felt like I was pressing too hard or I felt like I was trying to, hit certain notes or whatever the case may be. And now I'm at a space where it's just like free flowing. It's the conversation happens and I look back and I remember certain parts of it, but I'm not worried about what I said or, if I said the right thing, because I know I'm intentional about what I'm doing. And I believe the same way. I believe that, God is speaking through what I'm trying to communicate.
Yep.
So I don't have that issue anymore.
And I have, it's an interesting transition as well, because when I go and speak with coaches or when I go with teams, sometimes the coaches will say, so can you give me an agenda of what you're going to do with the team or with the athlete? You're going to be 3 hours with them. And I'm like, I can give you a rough outline, but honestly, I show up so intentionally that the athletes are going to dictate where I go. Yeah. I'm not here for my own agenda. I can teach about fear of failure. I can teach about performance anxiety. But what if I get there and all the kids are like, we hate each other. Right. We're not even getting along. Right. And I'm like, no, sorry, we have to go over these key agenda items. I just meet everyone where they are. And typically, same, it flows. I no longer carry around PowerPoints or spreadsheets or
I'm
agendas.
Sure that serves you well. I'm sure that serves you well.
And it makes me stay in the present moment. Yeah. And I think that's my genius space is being able just to meet people where they are. And I know in my heart of hearts that I'm going to deliver the message and the impact that they need for that given moment.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times when you do have these certain mindset coaches, they have like this is the way I do it and that's how it's going. And it might not resonate with the athlete or the team or the organization, as opposed to like being able to actually go in there and speak from an authentic feeling that you're having from the team. Now you're in the space of like, okay, I understand what this team is going through. I can adapt based on what I'm feeling.
And to ask what, the biggest thing I think, and it's also huge advice that I give to parents is to ask your kids questions.
Yeah.
I go in and I ask questions. What are you excelling at? What are you deficient at? Where are you struggling? How can I support you? And usually when one speaks up, then they all start to speak up. And then the more vulnerable they are, the more that I can help them.
Yeah.
So, and when I share with them, I can help you thrive when you give me your shit. Like, you can give me the fluff and all the things that you're really good at.
Be honest,
but be honest, and now tell me where you're struggling and where I can most, like, let's dive deep and get into what's really bothering you so that we can fix it and move forward and really start to make an impact on your performance.
That brings up a good point, because I want to talk about mental resilience and how we build mental resilience. What is mental resilience, if you could define it for the listeners that are going to be listening to this?
Mental resilience is the ability to experience crisis.
Okay.
And how quickly you're able to mentally recover to pre-crisis mode, if that makes sense.
Yeah, get back to
right, pre-crisis mode. So mental resilience might be team goes down 28-0.
Yeah.
And their attitudes have changed, and now they start the fear and the worry and all the things start to flood in. How quickly can we get back into a mode like the game when we were up 32-0? And what does that look like? What does that feel like?
Yeah.
And resilience is really, just that ability to overcome and see it as you can see it as an obstacle and rise above it, or it doesn't even have to be an obstacle.
Yeah.
It just is what it is. It's just information.
Use it as information.
Did you know there's no such thing as negative or positive?
Explain.
It just is.
It is what
it just is. So the example that I give is
I need some proof. Because I'm open to it.
Yeah,
I just need the proof.
I know this is a kind of a game changer. This was a game changer for me and how I looked at things. Yeah. Right. So I'll give you an example, and then I'll give you another example. But so 2 years ago, right, I was in Marietta. I was in Georgia. I needed to get to the Atlanta airport. I was in Marietta. It's about an hour ride away. I had just worked with a gym. I was 4:30 in the morning heading to the flight. I had a flight at like 6:15, and I got pulled over by the police.
Okay.
So I got pulled over by a police officer at 4:30 in the morning. I may or may not have skirted through a yellow light. Yeah. And she was like, license and ready, and I was like, and I couldn't find my driver's license. And I couldn't find my driver's license. And I was like, oh my gosh, where the heck is my driver's license? And immediately I was like, oh my gosh, I worked out at the gym last night. And they kept my driver's license as collateral. So I was like, oh my gosh. But in that moment, I actually was like, so she left and came back and gave me a written warning for driving without my driver's license and for the running of the yellow light. And I actually thanked the police officer. I was like, had you not pulled me over, I would have driven all the way to Atlanta and not had my driver's license. Yeah. So I'm actually really grateful right now, where some people may not necessarily see it that way. Yeah. And the whole drive there, back to the thoughts become things, the whole drive there, I was like, okay, how am I going to make this happen? I literally have an hour to get to the airport and 15 minutes to get on a flight.
And Atlanta airport is terrible.
It's awful.
Yeah.
And I had to go get my driver's license at the gym. The gym opened at 5. And I'm like, okay, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get the license. I'm going to pull up to the curb. I'm going to run in. I'm going to grab it. I'm going to drive. I'm going to get there in 55 minutes. I'm going to drop my rental car. I'm going to get to Southwest, the gate, skate through there. I'm on A-list, so there's going to be nobody in the A-list line, and I'm going to skirt through and I'm going to make it on in the A-list even. Like, I was just like, the whole ride that I'm like, this is what's next. This is what needs to happen. This is how I'm going to make my flight. I drop rental car. Everything's fine. Traffic was great. All the things. Get to the Southwest. She's like, your bag's 3 pounds over. And I was like, that wasn't in the plan. And I'm like, miss, I have a flight to catch in 15 minutes. And she's like, oh, just go, honey. And I was like, who does that for 3 pounds over? That's amazing.
Sure. I would have just paid for it.
Right. Same. But I made it through and I literally walked on in the A-list. But had I had a different experience, or had I been bummed or mad because of that, I would have been like, now I'm going to miss my flight. I'm never going to make it. And chances of me making that flight would have been slim to none.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this. If you had missed the flight,
Yep.
are you still in the mindset that there is no negative, no positive?
Yeah.
You missed that flight for a reason.
Yes, I am totally in the mindset that I missed that flight for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so the example that I give the athletes is, so you and I are 12-year-old twins,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we come home from a long week of practices and everything. I'm in my sport, you're in your sport. Mom is just the beautiful woman that she is, decides to make us chocolate chip cookies and milk for our snack.
Okay.
Right. So mom is all excited and we get home and she's like, "Oh kids, I made you a snack for after school." And you're the good child and you are I shouldn't say the good child. You're the grateful child.
Okay.
And you say, "Oh my gosh, mom, thank you so much. I so appreciate that. That was so thoughtful. You worked, you did this." And me, being the not so grateful child, said, "I am not a baby. I do not need you to make me cookies and milk after school.
Mm-hmm.
That's silly."
Mm-hmm.
Did mom do anything differently?
No.
She just served us cookies and milk.
Yeah.
You and I put meaning on it and made it a negative or a positive. So things aren't negative and positive. It's just
how you interpret
it's just how we choose to react to it in the story we tell ourselves about it.
That's super interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
So truly, I've been practicing this a long time. It's kind of one of my favorite things to just be like, if something negative happens, I always am able to be like, there's a reason. And I might not know it today and it might be frustrating,
Mm-hmm.
but a little while from now, I'll probably figure it out.
Yeah.
And it'll have been a message or something, but I don't usually get too riled up over it.
Yeah.
Because I just believe everything is happening the way that it's supposed to.
Absolutely. I've done a lot of work in that space as well. I would say post-career of just allowing things to flow, but it takes work within the person, because
It does.
a lot of people like to be in control of the way things fold out. You know, there was a time where I had opportunities on the table to go do this, go do that, and then they fall through. And it's like, you know, or I'm late and I'm like, why did I end up being late? Or why is this person acting like this, or whatever the case may be. And then now I look back on it and it's like, oh, that wasn't meant for me. Like that's
Exactly.
not what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Or, you know, I just think people have a hard time getting to that space though, of like,
They do.
really allowing things to flow, because there is a time to press for certain things, but there's also a time to release certain things and just understand that door has closed for a reason, you know? And I think people in this day and age, people have a hard time with it.
Yeah. Well, and even like on that note of, you know, I've been doing this for 11 years. Football's a hard sport to get into.
Yes.
I'm a female.
Yes.
Right. I've worked with some college kids who are now in the NFL.
Yeah.
And to Ryan Cook's point,
Yeah.
I was that trainer, that coach that got left in the dust the second they made it
what
big.
we were talking about.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So when that happens, you're like, wait, did I do something wrong? He just had the best year of his career.
Yeah.
He was a starting quarterback as a freshman. He lit it up, did so well, and then never to be heard from again. Right. And over time, and but I also understand that
now you understand.
I understand it wasn't it's not my time.
Yeah.
It wasn't my time then. And they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
Right.
I
they
think,
don't know. They're just like Ryan said, they probably have so many people in their ear, so many professionals. You don't need that anymore. You're fine, or go do this, or we have this person and we have this, and they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not mad about that.
Right.
I just know it's part of both of our journeys.
Yeah.
And when the time is right, I'll be introduced to the right people and be able to break through. And I know that the football teams that have worked with me have had tremendous success. And at the same time, to get a coaching staff all to believe, to meditate right before a football game is a little off, you know, is a little off.
For sure.
For some people's mentality.
Yeah.
But Desert Mountain, when my son played there, like I was in the locker room with him at 4 p.m. before the game, and we were doing guided visualization and meditation.
No, that's big.
And they all loved it.
Yeah.
You know, but you have the old school guys going, what are you doing? Putting them to sleep?
No,
you know,
no, for
like
sure.
you get it.
No, visualization is huge. I've done a lot of work. I worked with a sports performance coach, Darren Treasure, who I've spoken about, and I've done a podcast episode with him as well. But a big thing that we focused on was, you know, I used to get really nervous before games. And so he would actually ask me, what are your keys to this game? Like, you kind of, what are you intentional about this game? And I would give it to him earlier in the week. And then after warm-ups, I would come in, put headphones on, and he would send me a tape. It would be like a 3 to 5 minute tape.
Love it.
And it was visualizing myself having success. I mean, down to the point of like, okay, you're at M&T Bank in Baltimore. You're wearing, you know, white, your cleats. This is how you feel. You just came in off of warm-ups. Like, I know you're amped up. Okay, let's calm you down. So we go through breathing on the tape, and then we visualize the things that are going to set me up for success. So yeah, it's kind of crazy, because you would think some players, when you watch football, you think everyone's amped up to go out there and they're just, their mind's spinning. But like, there's a lot of guys that are super calm and they just allow, and I was one of them, like, I'm super calm before I'm going out to the game. And then when the game turns on, that's when, you know, that
You flip your
mindset,
switch.
that switch gets flipped. So
For everyone, it's different. And that is what's kind of cool. And when I actually anchor teams together as well, like in the same energy, and they all need different things, right? Someone might need to be hyped. Someone might need to be calm. Someone might need to, you know, feel confident and positive. And really the key to the visualization is, how do you want to feel when you're doing it? Can you even smell the grass?
Yeah.
If you can, right? When you can invoke all 5 of your senses into that visualization, at the end of the day, it's not as much about the outcome, because we start to stress when we really focus on the outcome. It's it's how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
How do you want to feel when it's over?
Yeah.
If you feel good and accomplished, the rest is going to come. So focusing on the feeling as opposed to the outcome is really huge as well when it comes to the visualization part.
I love that. I want to get back to what you had mentioned about Ryan's episode, when you did experience that, whatever, that athlete that kind of left you from, you know, working with them the whole time. Does that bring doubt to you at all in that moment? Like, are you doubting your ability to be a mindset coach because they have gone on to, you know, another person? What, like, give me the cold hard truth about it.
No, actually, no. It was, and I don't know if maybe, I think maybe it was more a hurt ego than it was about my ability. Hurt ego being worked with, you know, since high school, and then went on to college, and like every single thing that we were intentional about, like right down to the exact stats happened. That he wanted to be a freshman starting quarterback. That happened. Crazy, like crazy intentional, where I was like, I'm in, like I am a rock star. And then I'm like, no, maybe not. Like there's, you know, and I get it. I'm not the norm. And
what do you mean by that?
I'm not a sports psychologist.
Okay.
Right. I'm an elite performance coach, and I have a lot of, you know, I'm a practitioner of a lot of different things, and I meld and blend so many different things together, which I really enjoy doing, whether it be the NLP work, whether it be, I also have I'm a master practitioner in what's called MER.
What's that?
Mental emotional release. So that I have the ability to help you go into your subconscious through a meditative and hypnotic state and eliminate fear, anxiety, limiting beliefs, all the different negative emotions. Yeah. So I have a way to help you rewire your brain.
I might want to try that at some point.
It's actually really, and it's instantaneous, which is a beautiful thing. I do it a lot with my kids who have performance anxiety, kids who have fear of failure, fear of failing a chemistry test. Like it's good for everything. But really what it is, it's all about, you know, we fire what we wire in our brain. And if we're wiring negative thoughts, those aren't serving us. So, and if I have somebody that's struggling with the negative thoughts, I can help you go into your subconscious, because our subconscious holds everything. Holds everything.
Do you listen to Joe Dispenza? Yeah. It's giving me Joe Dispenza vibes for sure.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, because our subconscious is such a collective of everything that really, yeah, if you want to go really deep, right? We are basically the sum of our the three biggest traumas in our life. So when we have traumas in our life, that's how we become who we become. Whether it be something happened at a young age. I can tell you quite a few times when I hypnotize, I just did it to a 15-year-old athlete, and I basically take her into her subconscious and she remembers, and I ask her questions. And when I asked her a question, I was like, when was the first time you experienced fear? And it's your subconscious speaking to you. This is getting a little out there, but your subconscious speaking to you. And I said, did it happen before, during, or after your birth? And she said, during. And I said, what month? And she said, April. And I was like, okay, cool. And then we got done and she was like, why did I say April? Like I was in my mom's tummy. And I was like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, it's what your subconscious remembers. So we talked to mom.
Okay. Yeah, I need to know.
Mom in April was in a car accident.
Wow.
And was petrified for the safety of her daughter. That fear is in the DNA, which is transferred down. We all have our parents' DNA in us. And your DNA stores emotions. And so when you start to really dive deep into that level, wow.
Yeah, that's deep.
It's super deep. And 9 times out of 10, right, my client is going to be the type A perfectionist, people pleaser, harder on themselves than everyone else. Why do you think that is?
DNA.
It's the DNA, and it's where they come from. And if you look at mom or dad, whether it be an abandonment issue, whether it be a high performance issue, mom and dad, an attorney, a doctor, and that creates the pressures. Not that they intend on it, but it's just the way that it is. Then how do we handle that, right? Yeah. So to be able to go in and wipe out that fear and then start to re-put in, it doesn't mean that she forgets about it,
right?
But we get the opportunity to wipe out that fear and then replace it with positive things. And the hardest part is the whole social media thing, which I could talk about forever, but I actually purposely change my clients' algorithms. Because if you have fears or anxieties,
your social media will definitely
elevate it and feed it even worse. So instead, I intentionally will have them, hey, send me 3 videos on overcoming an obstacle. Hey, send me 2 puppy videos. Anything that I can do to switch the algorithm to make it more positive. And I share that with parents as well. It's super powerful. Like we're not going to get rid of social media. So if I can't, I'm going to join them, I'm going to play with them, and I'm going to make sure that I play for the power of the benefit of being positive. And how can we start incorporating more positive things in these kids' lives that are already struggling?
Yeah. No, that's powerful. I was thinking about the DNA thing, and like I think a lot of people where their frustration comes in when they can't get past the trauma aspect or why they're having these thoughts or, anxiety, depression, they think that it's something wrong with them, and they don't go as far back to think that this could be a generational thing or this could be embedded in me since I was prior to when I was born. And so people don't even get to that point sometimes, and they refuse to go that deep, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's a big piece that like I've done a lot of thinking about is just, okay, is this something that I experienced or is this something that has been in my family, and now it's up to me to explore what it looks like to get past it
and either break that cycle or the generation, or learn from it and move forward. I know for me, I always thought it was because I was a firstborn, right? Firstborns are typically type A, perfectionist, people pleaser. So now I jokingly, I'm a recovering type A perfectionist, and I understand what it's like, and I totally get it. I was also adopted. And so by being adopted, everyone would be like, oh, don't you, like you must have abandonment issues. And I was like, no, I live the best life. I have 2 wonderful parents. I've lived the greatest life ever. But when we really dig into the DNA of what that could have done and how that affected me, I mean, I guess you could say abandonment, right? Because ultimately our DNA as children, our number one, and I share this with parents all the time, as children, their number one quest is to do nothing more than please mom and dad. That's it. So if we get in the car and mom and dad are asking, why didn't you do this? How did you do this? We've already feel like we failed.
Very true.
80% of kids quit a sport
Yeah.
because of the car ride home.
Really? Because of what the conversation is in the car ride?
Yeah.
That's tough. I don't know if I've even ever shared. I actually quit Pop Warner, but it was not because of the car ride home. It was because I was bigger than everyone else, and I was 10 playing with 14-year-olds.
Yep.
So I was getting my ass whooped every day on the field, and it just wasn't for me.
It just wasn't for you.
But that's crazy that that has the influence on a child. I mean, I can only imagine like getting in the car and feeling that your parent isn't on your side when it comes to the things that you're dealing with in your sport.
Right. And knowing that, I mean, really, truly, their intentions aren't ill-willed.
Yeah.
They think they're just making you better.
Right.
I just want to help. I just want to, like, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And for years, I was so terrified to talk to parents about, like, hey, let me tell you how you're jacking up your kid. But at the end of the day, I learned so many things from my own coach. And I asked my kids so many questions after the fact. Hey, how did I mess you up? How did I mess you up during divorce? Hey, what happened? Like, can you explain to me what you thought? Because I thought it was this. And then they'd give me an entirely different story. And I'd be like, wow, never thought of it from your eye, from your lens. And so understanding that, it helps a ton, to how can we better communicate?
Yeah, that leads me into our next thing. Talk to me about the 5 pillars that you believe in.
Oh yeah,
and I want before we end, I want you to kind of explain the 5 pillars and what you believe in, and just how it can be effective in helping people, not just athletes but everyone.
Yeah. So my 5 pillars are Q life, Q mind, Q body, Q soul, Q community.
Yeah.
And so I actually do have a camp that I teach. It's about a 3.5 hour, 4 hour camp that I teach the 5 pillars, because I think it's all about the well-rounded athlete, big into fitness, wellness, nutrition, all the things.
Yeah.
So Q life, that pillar is all about dreaming and goal setting and journaling and all the things that come along with that.
Which is big.
The thoughts become things. How are we, handling that negative voice on the, side of our shoulder? That's actually more in mind, but the dreaming and goal setting. The Q body is how are we taking care of our body?
Yeah.
With my sports medicine background, there's all kinds of things that we talk about with that, from everything from sugar to caffeine to how you're fueling your body properly with protein and all the good stuff, to how much sleep are you getting, to cold plunges for anti-inflammation, post or Epsom baths. Yeah. So Q body, we touch on a lot of that, because when we're getting to that elite level, every little bit, of course, counts.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a wrestler right now that's getting ready to compete at state in Indiana. And like, we're really dialing in his food, because he's like, is it because I'm not eating that I am getting fatigued early in practice? And I'm like, probably. Yeah. You need food.
Yeah, that's a thing.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Q mind then is all about the confidence, the fear of failure, the mental resilience, the performing under pressure. How do we handle what's in our brain, and how can we become a little bit more mentally resilient to help elevate ourselves. Also, the flow state comes in there, meditation, all of that. Q soul is all about just, kids are so overscheduled these days, and which is a good thing. It keeps them busy, but really reconnecting to those micro minutes of what brings you joy.
Yeah.
Like, it can be read a book. It can be go walk in nature. It could be call a friend.
Yeah.
It could be a weekend away,
for sure.
right? With our spouses. So whatever it is that brings you, that really can reignite your soul, because it helps get you back to baseline, right?
Yeah.
A weekend away with your wife could totally reset you for the whole next week and bring you back to like an excellent condition, right?
Absolutely.
And then Q community is, who are you surrounding yourself with?
Yeah, that's big.
Who are you around? Who are you surrounding yourself with? As an entrepreneur, a lot of times I think we get so stuck in being solo and doing everything for ourselves. Yeah. And this year, it's actually a big focus of mine to create a very conscious community.
Okay.
Not just a community where everyone has access.
Yeah, be intentional.
But being intentional about who has access, and that conscious community of reaching out, of creating more impact, doing more keynote speak, and really being, like you said, being intentional about it.
Yeah.
But it starts with your family. It can start with, from a singular group on a team to the whole team to the whole university to the whole, organization. But the community outreach can be large, but we also have control of how are we going to show up in that community as well.
I love that. And all of that leads to peak performance, not just in life, but obviously in, your sport. If you play sport, your job, whatever the case may be, like that's what I think everyone's aiming for is how can I be the best at what I do while also feeling fulfilled and feel like I'm checking all those boxes actively.
Correct.
So
yeah, exactly. Really, I think that those 5 pillars compute across the board for sport, business, life.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the reason why I'm named my business is Q Life.
Love that.
Because I believe that you can define your Q and ultimately live it.
I love that. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming by.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate this gift and
you're so welcome.
reminding me that I'm in the top 1%.
1%.
That's where I want to live at.
Let's
go.
Yeah,
I appreciate you. It's been, this is what I'm all about. I'm all about the conversations where I can better myself and then also my listeners can gain knowledge from it and incorporate things in. So thank you.
I know
for
you're a big
by.
journaler, so I did bring you a little journal page from my planner. So
cool.
So I brought that for
that.
you. Yep.
I'll definitely use it. So thank you. Where can people find you at? Where's the best way to get in contact with you?
Just launched my new website. So it's www.jengraffice.com.
Okay.
And then jengraffice.qlife are all my social media handles.
Awesome.
So TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah, same.
All right. Take care.
Let me shoot my outro, please, Taylor. Uh-oh. We good?
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah. All right. I appreciate you guys listening to this episode of For the Underdogs podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, all the good things, and I'll see you soon.
Yeah, for the underdogs, I'm an underdog. I've been through it all. I can never fall.